Hello, and thank you for attending today. We're going to talk about how to live your best life starting now, how to find optimal health, and how to feel great too. If you failed at this in the past, I'm here to tell you it's not your fault. There is so much information out there, and that information overload can be confusing. We're not sure what to do, right? Also, have you ever thought that maybe you're just too old to feel great? I mean, we've never been our current age before, so maybe that's what we're supposed to feel like at this particular age. I know that's how it was for me when I hit 40. I thought, wow, this is what 40 feels like. Okay, I wasn't ready for that, but this is where it is. Also, have you ever been to the doctor and been told that you're fine, but yet you don't feel fine? That's happened to many people I've come into contact with. Also, have you ever wondered, does your insurance company truly care about your health? It's my opinion that they really don't. Insurance companies care about keeping you from being really sick because that's really costly and they care about saving money. But they really don't care about trying to up-level your health and get you optimally healthy. The difference with me is that I really do care, and I can show you a way to get there. So that's what I'm here for. I know you have a dream of feeling better, of thriving, not just surviving in life. And I want to show you how to make that happen. I have a new opportunity, and my opportunity is really perfect for two different types of people. I see people who are struggling day in and day out with fatigue, joint achiness and pain, and struggling to lose weight. And I also see a lot of people who are looking to up-level their health and longevity. They want to age gracefully. My goal for this presentation today is to let you know that the only way to eliminate your fatigue, to decrease your aches and pains, and to get your metabolism working again is to get to the root cause of your problems. And the only way to get to the root cause of your problems is to look at your body as a whole instead of its integrated parts. Let me talk a little bit about conventional medicine and how it differs from functional medicine. Conventional medicine is sort of a pill for an ill approach. So for instance, if you had come to see me at my old office as a family practitioner and you had 3 different complaints, I would likely offer you 3 different solutions for those 3 different problems. So let's say, for example, you had heartburn, maybe you had a rash on your arm, and maybe your ankle is bothering you. You are likely going to leave my office with 3 different solutions to those 3 very different problems. Possibly a proton pump inhibitor for your acid indigestion, maybe some hydrocortisone cream for the rash on your arm, and maybe a nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory for the ankle pain. If the problems didn't get better, I might try some different medications along those same lines to see if we couldn't clear things up. Ultimately, if they still didn't get better, I may at that point refer you to 3 different specialists. I'd have you see a gastroenterologist for the stomach problem, a dermatologist for the skin rash, and an orthopedic physician for the ankle pain. With functional medicine, the approach is completely different. My thinking would be, wow, that's really interesting that your body is presenting with those symptoms. I wonder what's going on that's causing your body to react that way. Because here's the thing, the body doesn't work independently of one another. The symptoms all work together. And so looking at them all together is really the key to figuring out what's causing the problem. Oftentimes in conventional medicine, we're treating the symptoms, and in functional medicine, we're looking at what is the underlying problem and how can we fix it. Because here's the other thing, in conventional medicine, sometimes those treatments need to be lifelong. You need to take that heartburn medication for the rest of your life to prevent yourself from having heartburn. Whereas in functional medicine, we look at how can we fix it and reverse it so that you don't have it anymore. So I'm your host. I'm Dr. Libby Wilson, MD, and I obtained my BS in biology from Wright State in 1996, and then I achieved my MD from Wright State in 2001. I spent 3 years at Miami Valley Hospital doing a family practice residency training program, and then I worked at Northside Family Physicians for 15 years as a conventionally trained family practice doctor. I have taken some additional training through the Institute of Functional Medicine at the Cleveland Clinic, and I've also trained with Dr. Dan Kalish at the Kalish Institute. I have also completed 15 marathons, including 2 Ironman triathlons, the Boston Marathon, a 50K, and a 50-miler. And if you'd have asked me in the past, I would tell you that being a doctor is what I do, but being a wife, mom, and an athlete, that's really who I am. That's always how I defined myself. And since I found functional medicine, I have a real passion for healthcare too. And so now I define myself as a wife, mom, athlete, and a functional medicine doctor who seeks health and wellness for her patients. I was drawn to the field of functional medicine really because of my daughter. And this is a picture of her when I believe she was starting kindergarten. But around this time, she started to have some belly pain. And I, as a doctor, decided to treat her for that belly pain, and I really thought she had what I called irritable bowel syndrome. She'd get these intermittent pains that were not always present, but when they did come, they would cause her a lot of distress. And I tried her on a medication for it, and it helped a little bit in the beginning, but it really didn't solve the problem long term, and the belly aches persisted. After some time, I took her to see one of my partners at the office, who was her actual doctor. Sometimes as the mother, you can be a little maybe too emotionally involved to see things clearly, and so I wanted another opinion. And after a thorough examination, the doctor agreed that I had made the right conclusion, that it was irritable bowel syndrome, and let's try her on a different medication. Again, we were hopeful, and it may have helped a little bit initially, but it certainly didn't solve the problem. Some more time went on, and we decided to see a specialist. And so we went down to Cincinnati Children's and saw a pediatric gastroenterologist. He did a very thorough examination and workup and spent an hour with us hearing about her struggles. We did stool testing and blood testing, and about a week later, I received a call from his nurse that everything was perfect, that everything was fine, and there was nothing wrong with her. The recommendation was to try some counseling. I knew intuitively something was going on. Counseling is wonderful, and it can help so many people in so many ways. I have nothing against counseling, but I knew my daughter wasn't a stressed out little girl, and that wasn't why she was having abdominal pain. I'll say the abdominal pain was turning her into a stressed out little girl, but it wasn't the other way around. But here's the problem. What do you do? When you have a problem and you've been to the doctor, and the doctor doesn't know the answer, and then you've seen the specialist, and the specialist doesn't know the answer, where do you turn to now? So I was so frustrated that I couldn't help her. I had gone to medical school and I'd worked so hard, and now I couldn't even help my own daughter. I'll tell you a quick little story. This same daughter, when she was about 4 or 5 years old, she got the flu. Full-blown influenza. And if you've ever had the flu, you know that this is a terrible, terrible thing. We throw around the word the flu a lot, but really the actual influenza really makes you feel terrible for a while. She was laying on our kitchen floor, kind of rolling around back and forth, just feeling very uncomfortable. And I said to her, "Is there something I can get for you?" I'm meaning a pillow, a blanket, maybe another dose of Motrin or a glass of water. And she said, "Can you call someone who can do something to actually help me?" And I think at the time she thought, there's got to be answers out here and my mom just doesn't know them, right? So it was funny at that time, but this time it didn't feel so funny. I didn't know who to call to help her at this point. So I decided that I was going to figure it out. I couldn't find anyone with the answer, so I took the matters into my own hands. That was when I went to the Cleveland Clinic and I took my first course in functional medicine. And it was a gastroenterology course, and I learned the first day of that course what I thought she might have. It was actually something called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth syndrome, and I had never heard of this diagnosis before. This wasn't something that rang a bell from my previous training. It was actually something I had never been exposed to in my 11 years of conventional medicine training. Of course, I confirmed her diagnosis with a test, and then I treated her naturally for the overgrowth, and her belly pain went away. And the reason I chose this picture for this slide was to remind me to tell you the story that when she was little, she told me, "Mom, you know how the kids go to Washington, D.C. in the 8th grade? Well, I'm not going because what if I get a bellyache?" And she told me this when she was like in the 2nd or the 3rd grade. And she's now in the 8th grade, and she went to the Washington, D.C. trip, and she had an amazing time. And the bellyaches weren't even anything for her to worry about because they just don't happen anymore. So I began to wonder at this point, what else can we fix? There were lots of things that I was encountered with in daily basis in my practice that I didn't have great answers for. And I began to wonder, maybe there are answers to these problems that we just think are unsolvable. And I started to wonder, maybe, just maybe, the way I feel at 40 isn't the way that you're supposed to feel. Maybe this isn't what normal is. And maybe I can make myself feel better and make others feel better too. So I started my journey with finding out what was wrong with my daughter. But that journey really transformed me as a wife, mother, doctor, and an athlete. So things aren't always what they seem, right? Have you ever noticed this? I've noticed this many times in my life. I'll give you 2 quick examples about my kids because I think it illustrates the point nicely. But when my older daughter was maybe 4 or 5 years old, she told me she wanted to take ballet lessons. And I tried to tell her, I don't think ballet is going to be a great fit for you. She's a very busy, energetic little girl. But she insisted, and sure enough, a couple of days into ballet lessons, she realized this was a little bit too low speed for her. We've always had the rule that once you start something, you finish it through till the conclusion. So she suffered through an entire season of ballet classes and was a step behind everybody during the recital because she just never really took to it. My younger daughter took a pig to the fair this year for 4-H. My older daughter had done goats for a couple of years and really had fun doing that. And Ainsley said, "How much harder can a pig be, right?" Everyone tried to tell us it's a lot harder, but she insisted, "I'm sure it won't be." And a couple of days into raising the pigs, we realized, wow, maybe we've bitten off a little bit more than we can chew. Well, if I'm going to be real honest, that's how medicine was for me too. I had gone to school, 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, 3 years of residency, basically my entire 20s to achieve this goal of being a doctor. And then it wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be. I thought I'd entered a healthcare system where I was going to help people be healthy. And really what I was doing was sick care, just treating sickness. And I really didn't even feel well trained or equipped to help people be healthy, even if I had the time to do that. So after 11 years of education and 15 years in practice, I came to the conclusion that there had to be a better way. You're probably thinking, that's great, nice story, but what does that have to do with me and my problems? You probably don't have SIBO like my daughter did, but you probably do have underlying things going on in your body leading to your symptoms. And here's why it's hard. If you've never taken a functional medicine approach, you've had no way of identifying what it is that is wrong. Even if you've gone to your doctor every year for your annual physical exam and been told that you are fine, likely the root cause of your symptoms haven't been discovered. You've been told you're fine, but maybe you're not as fine as you could be. I know with my own personal labs, I was in perfect health from a conventional medicine standpoint, but from a functional medicine standpoint, I had lots of things to improve upon. So here's what today's talk is not. I unfortunately don't have a magic pill that you can buy at the end of today's presentation to fix all of this and make your life perfect. I'm also not going to tell you that you have to take away all of life's pleasures and eat nothing but chicken and broccoli for the rest of your life to feel amazing. And I'm also not here to bash conventional medicine. I think conventional medicine is wonderful for lots of things, and we're very effective at solving lots of problems that way. But I am going to give you some very practical tips that you can implement right away to help you on the road to healing. Sound good? So I want you to believe that you have the power to change your life. I dramatically changed my life, and there's nothing special about me. You can do it too. And I hope I can have you believing that by the time that we're done here today. So I want you to be open-minded. I know that many of you are afraid that this is the way that it must be, that there are no answers to these common complaints that we develop as we age. But like me, you too can change your life. So I want you to sit back and relax, and I'm going to teach you 3 key things that you can implement now to help you change your life. The topic is complex and deep, and we can't cover all that there is to know today. And I know some of you will have questions and will want to do something about the symptoms that they have and will want some help with that. And so don't worry, later on I will let you know how you can get in touch with me if you want my help in that area. So thank you for being here today and giving me the opportunity to share my passion with you. I know your time is valuable, so I'll make sure to provide you with some very valuable takeaways. Nothing is for sale today, so please be open-minded, present, and focused, and I promise this will be immediately useful to you. With that, I want to tell you that there is a better solution to the way that you feel than Prozac. I'm going to say that again. There is a better solution than Prozac. Prozac is the go-to answer for everything in conventional medicine that we can't seem to solve. If you're tired, maybe you're depressed, let's try Prozac. If you're hormonal, well, that's really hard to treat. Let's try Prozac. Have you lost your zest for life? Try Prozac. Have you had weight gain? Well, we really can't fix that very well in conventional medicine, but maybe if you take the Prozac, you won't care so much about the weight that you've gained and be happier about it. So I want to tell you about a patient that I'm going to call Lily. Lily looked like she had it all together. She was smart, successful, married to her college sweetheart, and had 2 daughters. She seemed to balance her life with ease. She went to the gym regularly and maintained a healthy weight. But at 40, she started to feel not as well. She became tired, bone-crushing tired. She also became rather irritable. She put on a happy face to her friends and her neighbors, but really at the end of the day, when she had time to be with her family, who she cherished so dearly, she had nothing left in the tank to give them. She would snap at her husband and kids over small things, and then she'd feel guilty for being so crabby. She couldn't believe she felt as blah as she did. What was wrong with her? She felt like she was going through the motions in life and never really present. Rather than engaging with her family, all she felt like she had the energy for at the end of the evening was the scrolling of the endless Facebook and Instagram news feeds. She began to self-medicate with sweets. And because she was 40 now, her metabolism had slowed, and all of that went straight to her midline. The weight that she had always been able to maintain was slowly creeping upwards. Summer was approaching, and she'd always been able to feel comfortable in a bathing suit because she was naturally a thin person. But this year was different. There was no way she was putting that bathing suit on. She also noticed that her muscles ached. She loved to exercise, but she began to wonder, how much longer can I keep this up? After numerous attempts at trying harder, she saw her family doctor. Maybe it's my thyroid, Lily thought. After an examination by her doctor and some blood work, she got the phone call the next day that her labs were normal and maybe she should try some Prozac for her midlife depression. Can anyone relate to Lily? I'll tell you, in my last 15 years in practice, I've seen patients with this exact same story hundreds of times. Patients who were fatigued, achy, and tired and had lost their zest for life. And I couldn't help them. I knew there had to be better answers, and there are. You want to know the secret? That was me. Lily is really Libby. And that was my life. I had everything I ever wanted. An amazing husband, 2 amazing daughters, a beautiful home, a nice car, a great job. But yet I just didn't feel great. I felt tired. I felt drained. I felt achy. And I didn't know how to fix it. And I didn't know anyone else who could help me fix it either. I really left each day at work feeling like I wasn't doing much good. I thought I was going to help people be healthy, and I really didn't feel like I was able to do that. Partly because doctors aren't trained really well in health creation, especially when it comes to diet and exercise, things like that, but also because of the time constraints in a busy, conventional, insurance-based family practice. We generally have somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes to spend with the patient. And in that amount of time, we have to cover several things. We've got the patient's list of concerns that they presented to the doctor's office with, the reason they made the appointment. Then we have the insurance company dictating what we need to document to be paid for the visit. If we can accomplish that all and there's time left over, now maybe we'll have some time to implement some healthy lifestyle changes. But quite honestly, there's never any time for that. I did the best that I could under those time restraints, but I always left feeling like I could do so much more. I intuitively knew there had to be a better way. So I realized I had a choice. I could stay the same, or I could do something. Stay the same, or do something. I could continue on my stable yet unfulfilling career, or I could do something. I could buy the one-piece bathing suit and realize that after 40 the weight just comes on, or I could do something about it. I could continue to give my husband and my kids what, if anything, was left over at the end of the day, or I could do something about it. And I chose to do something. I chose to jump in with both feet and go back to school and learn functional medicine and change my life and change my career. Anyone who knows me knows that when I do something, I'm all in. And so when I start the process, I just got more and more excited about the things I was learning, and I just couldn't wait to learn more and more and more. And I'm still learning and still growing, but I'm having a blast doing it too. What started out as taking a course to figure out what was going on with my daughter, and then evolved to what can I do to uplevel my own health and how can I better help others, just really got me excited about medicine again, and I wanted to learn as much as I possibly could. And I thought I would initially integrate the new things I was learning into my old practice, but as I mentioned before, in that 10 to 15 minute visit, I'm already so time crunched with doing the patient's concerns and the health insurance company's concerns. There was no way I was going to be able to now introduce all these new concepts I was learning in that time crunched scenario as well. I decided I must do something different. Many of my colleagues think I've lost my mind, but I did achieve my desire to feel better. During the process, I realized I could change everything about my life that wasn't where I wanted it to be. So first, I found out what was going on with my body and I fixed it. And then I began to implement lifestyle changes to help me on my road to optimal health. Quite honestly, I didn't feel well enough in the beginning to do all the things that I knew I should be doing. But after I reversed some of the problems in my body, I had so much more energy and felt so much better that I was then motivated to make those lifestyle changes that are oh so important. I've done this by creating meaning and purpose in my life, decreasing the stress in my life, and learning how to be kinder to my body. I've gotten away from the conventional model of a pill for an ill approach, and I have a passion for helping middle-aged men and women achieve the same results that I did. Guess what? I didn't have a Prozac deficiency, and I bet you don't either. Here's the problem. So many people feel like this. They want to do something, but they have no idea what to do. They've tried different vitamins, they've tried different cleanses, but there's so much information out there that it's confusing and overwhelming. They need a guide, and that's what I do. So you might be thinking, if this is true, why isn't this mainstream medicine? I'll tell you, mainstream medicine is about good enough. And good enough is good enough for some people. Good enough wasn't good enough for me. I found this concept to be very interesting, and this is something I learned at my level 1 CrossFit course I took a few years back. First of all, let me say, I learned more about nutrition at the level 1 CrossFit course that I took than I did in medical school and residency combined. I think doctors roughly get 2 to 3 hours total training about nutrition in their entire medical training. And I learned a lot about nutrition at this course, but I also learned this concept. It's called the sickness, wellness, fitness continuum. Conventional medicine strives to get people from sick to wellness. And they do this by monitoring things like blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar. And if these lab values and parameters are normal at your physical, you'll be given a high five, told to keep doing what you're doing. We'll see you next year. Here's the problem. So many people have great numbers there, but just don't feel great. That's where I lied. My numbers were excellent, but I still didn't feel good at all. What I attempt to do is to move people from wellness to fitness or optimal wellness. I'm not interested in their cholesterol being okay, or their blood pressure being okay, or their blood sugar being okay. I want those things to be more than okay, but I also want to look deeper at deeper, different lab markers to optimize their health. And here's the great thing. Fitness is a hedge of protection against sickness. So you have to digress from fitness to wellness before you can ever go down the path to sickness. You also may be wondering, is there any science backing this? In the past, when patients asked me about alternative medicine, I would say something like, sure, try that if you want, but it isn't backed by science. Wrong. There's a lot of science backing this. I just didn't know about it, and most conventionally trained doctors don't know about it either. I've done my training through the Cleveland Clinic, Dr. Mark Hyman's Institute of Functional Medicine, and this is very evidence-based and backed by science. Also, Dr. Kalish, who I trained with for over a year, the Mayo Clinic did a study evaluating the protocols that he puts his patients through and validated the efficacy of his protocols. So let's break this down. Here's what we're going to cover in the rest of our time together. We are going to talk about 3 key tips about how to eliminate your fatigue, how to decrease muscle aches and pains, and how to boost your metabolism. Let's start with fatigue, because this is probably the most common complaint I've seen in my practice throughout the years. The myth is the key to overcoming fatigue is to push harder. Maybe I'm lazy. That's my problem. How do we fix it? Well, the way I used to fix it, the old Libby, was caffeine in increasing amounts. I used to drink coffee in the morning, coffee at lunchtime, coffee midday, and coffee right before dinner. It was how I survived. Occasionally there'd be an energy drink, 5-hour energy shot in there, but I survived on caffeine. But here's the secret. There's a new way, and it's called Fix the Adrenals. So our bodies were designed to handle acute stress. I don't think God ever intended for our lives to be as hectic and fast-paced as they are today. We are all under chronic stress, and sometimes it's just from life's daily demands. Getting the kids to their activities, feeding them 3 times per day, laundry, dishes, groceries, birthday parties, parent-teacher conferences, all of these things that are demanding our attention day in and day out lead us to feeling stressed and frazzled. And what happens is our body can no longer keep up with the cortisol production needed to keep up that hectic of a lifestyle. And so something happens called the pregnenolone steal, or the cortisol steal, that's depicted by this slide. Those red arrows are compensatory. They're not supposed to be happening, but what your body is doing is it's shunting the precursors to cortisol production to keep you going. It does this by shunting precursors away from sex hormone production. So our sex hormones decrease. That leads us to be crabby, irritable, have a low libido. Then our body can't keep up with the cortisol production either as this continues to go on. So now we're crabby, irritable, with a low libido and low energy. What tips people into adrenal fatigue? Sometimes it's just the chronic stress. That's what it was for me. It was just all of life's daily demands. Sometimes, though, it's a major stressor on top of all these chronic stressors. Something like a divorce, a birth of a child, maybe the second or the third child is oftentimes what will tip people over into adrenal fatigue. It could be a death in the family. It could be the feeling of being trapped in a bad relationship or working in an unhealthy work environment. Sometimes it's caring for an aging parent or a kid with special needs. Or maybe it's an adult child who isn't doing well and that you worry about constantly. But here's what happens. Our bodies weren't designed for chronic stress. And so our body thinks we're in danger. And so in order to protect us, it signals our body to store fat. It doesn't know when we're going to be able to eat again, even though we're eating regularly. It still thinks we need to store fat in case we can't eat from the danger that we're in. Our hormonal imbalances ensue because those precursors are shunted towards cortisol production, and our immune system becomes weakened because cortisol production is favored over immune cell production. So sometimes people will get chronic frequent infections, sinus infections, urinary tract infections, upper respiratory infections. Everything in health lies on having healthy, functioning adrenal glands. So it's the cornerstone to optimal health is to fix this problem. I first learned about adrenal fatigue from my sister-in-law probably close to 15 years ago. Adrenal fatigue was also not a topic I learned about in medical school. Never heard of it. And she asked me about it early in my conventional medicine career, and I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never heard of that. She sent me an article about adrenal fatigue, and I read it, and I was really fascinated by it. It seemed to make perfect sense, and it seemed to answer the question that so many of my patients were asking me as to why I'm so tired. But at the end of the article, it said that the treatment for it was to decrease the stress in your life. And I remember kind of dismissing it at that point, thinking, well, that's great, but how do you do that? Because the things that are stressing me out aren't really optional. I need to go to work every day to provide for my family. My kids need fed every single day, like 3 times a day. The laundry needs done. I need to run them to their activities. All these things that I was finding stressful weren't optional things. So I really dismissed it at this point. I will tell you a story about a patient of mine named Amber. Amber was somebody who, actually her husband called me at his wit's end. He didn't know what to do. His fun and energetic wife was no longer that person. She was just so tired. And he begged me to do something. And at this point, I was still working in my conventional medicine practice, and I had learned about some of these things because I had tried with her all the other things I needed to do as a conventional medicine doctor. I had tried her on the Prozac. I had checked her thyroid and her blood count and her B12 level, all these things that I was hoping might be the reason for her fatigue. But I did an adrenal test on her and diagnosed her with adrenal fatigue, and I started to correct it. And I remember her coming into my office a few months later and telling me that she felt happy for the first time in her life. And she was really on the road to recovery as we started to reverse this. I'll tell you my own story is that I found that I had very significant adrenal fatigue. Here was somebody who I thought I was perfectly healthy. And I found out that I had a very, very low cortisol level and very, very low hormone levels. And I began to replace them. And quite honestly, I wasn't a huge believer in the beginning because this is so different than the training I had been under for so long that I wasn't sure if I really believed in it or not. But after a month of trying to fix it, I felt so much better that I began to really believe in it. And over time, I kept getting better and better and better. So here's my first tip for you. Self-care and stress management. We are all better overall human beings if we can take time to care for ourselves. And I know that's hard when life is busy, right? I take it off the top. I remember when I first got married, we sought out a financial planner to help us, and the tip was you save for retirement first, right? You don't wait till the end of the month, and if something's left over, then put it in your retirement account. There'll never be anything left. You plan for it ahead of time, and that's what I do with my self-care. I get up in the morning before the rest of my family does, and I have an hour of doing what I want to do. That usually includes some meditation. When I first started meditating, I thought, there's no way this will ever work. I have no time for this, and I'm terrible at meditating. But I downloaded an app for my phone called Headspace, and I started meditating for 3 minutes a day. And I thought I was doing it wrong because my mind would wander. But what that was in those 3 minutes, I was telling my body, I'm not in danger. Everything is okay. And that was resetting my adrenals to know that I wasn't being chased by a tiger. Everything was okay. 3 minutes every day. It made a huge difference in my life. And you can do it too. And by doing that, you have the power to change your life. You might be thinking, that's too easy, and I don't think that would work for me. Let me share with you this concept I learned from a book that I read called The Slight Edge. I think it might be my favorite book I've ever read, and I read a lot of books. But here's the gist of it. Simple disciplines repeated over time yield huge results. And likewise, simple errors in judgment repeated over time yield huge negative consequences. And this applies to all lifestyle changes, so this certainly applies to meditation. I think it might be easier to illustrate, though, if we talk about it in terms of diet. Okay? So let's say I have 2 friends. We'll call them friend A and friend B. And friend A decides starting today, she's going to go on a healthy diet. Whole foods, no gluten, no sugar, and she is adamant that she's going to stick with it. And friend B says, I've tried that before. It doesn't work. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to keep doing what I do. If you saw both of my friends the very next day after making that commitment or lack of commitment, would you be able to tell any difference in the 2 of them? Absolutely not, right? What about a week later? Would you be able to tell a huge difference in the person who was really strictly following their diet and the person who wasn't? Probably not. What about a month later? My guess is probably not. Maybe if you really knew them well, you might notice some changes. But what about a year later? What if you saw them for the first time a year later? Would you be able to tell which was which? Who had taken the road to healthy lifestyle choices and who hadn't? Absolutely you would. But here's the problem. Those curves run together for a long, long time. And it's hard. It's hard to do some of these lifestyle changes. So about a month in, we say, yeah, this isn't working. I give up, because we haven't gotten to that point yet where the curve really starts to take off in the positive direction. So now I've shown you how you can eliminate fatigue by healing your adrenals in one 3 to 10 minute way that you can start doing this on your own. Isn't that cool? Okay, let's go on to our second tip, and we're going to talk about joint pain and achiness. Here's the myth, and this is what I told myself. I'm supposed to hurt. I'm getting older, and this is my life. How do we fix it? Well, the old way is ibuprofen in increasing amounts. I used to take a lot of ibuprofen. But the secret is there's a new way, and it's called fixing the gut. Before I get into that, let me talk a little bit about arthritis, because that's what I think about when we think about joint pain, right? When I think about arthritis, I think about two different forms of arthritis. Osteoarthritis, which is depicted by the X-ray in this picture, and inflammatory arthritis, which is depicted by the drawing. Osteoarthritis is rather inevitable as we age, and I think I've got a little osteoarthritis in my back. And if you're over the age of 40, you probably have a little osteoarthritis too. Osteoarthritis is the wear and tear of the joint space, and it really creates bone on bone. And you can see in that X-ray there's very little space between those two bones. They just really seem to be sitting on top of each other, as opposed to the other picture where there's a nice wide joint space. See that difference? Osteoarthritis is characterized by pain as the day goes on. So people with osteoarthritis feel pretty great in the morning, but the more they do, the more they hurt. Inflammatory arthritis is the opposite. It's achiness and stiffness in the morning that improves with activity. It may worsen again with prolonged sitting, but the more you move, the better you feel in general. Well, what causes inflammatory arthritis? Inflammation. And where does inflammation come from? Inflammation comes from two primary sources, one being the food we eat, and the other being what lives in our gut. So some of the foods that we eat are highly inflammatory. Think sugar, think gluten. This is bad news, I know, because I love this stuff. About 10 years ago, I read a book called Wheat Belly by Dr. William Davis. And I really did not want to hear what the book had to say. It was talking about how inflammatory some of these foods that I absolutely loved were. And back then, I was in my 30s, and I was an exerciser. I had started to put a little bit of weight on after I had had my second daughter at my mid-30s, and I picked up running at that point, and I found that I could eat whatever I want and run, and it was nice and even. My weight would maintain right there. And I found that I really enjoyed the running for many other reasons beyond the weight loss. And so that was how I coped at that point in my life. But I ate whatever I wanted. And anyone who would know me would tell you I ate a lot of bad food. I was a carb-aholic, and I loved sugar and processed carbs, and that was the bulk of my diet. But as I hit 40, my weight started to increase. The running wasn't keeping it where I wanted it to anymore, and I was running a lot. My midsection became bloated, and I started to ache. I noticed when I got out of bed in the morning, my joints really ached. So I finally came to grips with the fact that I must change my diet. And when I eliminated the gluten and the sugar from my diet on most days, I noticed that my weight started to decrease, my midsection became less bloated, and the achiness in my joints started to go away. But the other place the inflammation comes from is our gut. We all have bacteria living in the gut. And we tend to think of bacteria as bad, right? We want to avoid bacteria to avoid being sick. But bacteria are actually very good for us in some ways. So in our gut, we have both good bacteria and bad bacteria. And the good bacteria keep us very healthy, and the bad bacteria can cause a lot of inflammation. Here's an interesting point. There's more DNA in the bacteria that live in our gut than there is in our own genetic makeup that we got from our mom and our dad. That blew my mind when I learned that. So, an update about Lily/Libby, she found that she had a parasite in her gut. She would have never known it because she had no symptoms that were really GI related. Her only symptom was really just some achiness that she thought was normal for her age. But once she was able to eliminate that parasite through some herbal treatments, her achiness got so much better and her energy got a lot better too. So getting the gut bugs right is one of the keys to optimal health and longevity. So you might be thinking, I don't have any gut-related symptoms. I don't think I have anything wrong with my gut. I'll tell you, I didn't think I did either. But sometimes having the gut bugs wrong can manifest in ways such as acne or skin rashes. Joint achiness and pain is a really common one, or just that really uncomfortable bloating after eating. I've done lots of these tests now, and I've never found a perfect one yet. There's always something that can be optimized in the gut. So my second tip is to limit the bread and sugar in your diet. This is hard, I know, because this stuff is so good and so rewarding. But if you keep your blood sugar stable, I think it's fairly easy to do. So I like to fuel my body with really healthy foods that are really filling and satiating too. So I eat a lot of lean protein, tons of vegetables. You can't eat too many vegetables. Healthy fats, and some fruit. And by eating that way, I'm full, so I'm not thinking about food nearly as much as I would otherwise be. My blood sugar is nice and stable, and it allows me to make better choices again for the next meal. You have the power to change your life, and by making this one change with your diet, it will make a huge, huge difference. So now I've shown you how you can decrease your joint pain and inflammation by finding the culprit in your gut, and one way you can do it yourself with your diet. Isn't that cool? So before I forget, because I do have one more important tip to share and myth to bust, I know a few of you may be ready to figure this out, to test your adrenals and to see where they're at, to see what infections may be hidden in your gut and come up with a clear roadmap to identifying it and correcting your body. I have created a signature program where I walk patients through this exact process to identifying what's going on with their body and healing it one sure and steady step at a time. You don't have to figure it out. I already have, and I can walk you through it. I offer you to apply for a breakthrough session through my website, www.northsidefunctionalmedicine.com, and sign up for a session where I can hear your story and I can share my detailed plan to healing it with you. So, with that, let's move on. This is another common one that I saw in my practice all the time. I can't lose weight no matter how hard I try. The myth is, and this is actually a myth, you're going to think it's a fact, but I'll explain, that your metabolism slows down with aging. It's inevitable and there's nothing that you can do about it. I will agree, everyone's metabolism does slow down as they age, but it's not supposed to. There's a reason for it, and we can identify it and fix it. So the old way was slow down and get depressed, right? There's nothing I can do about it. I'm just destined to be heavier as I get older. But the secret is there is a new way, and it's to decrease your toxic load to fix your metabolism. Let me explain. So this is a picture of the liver, and it shows all the complicated processes that happen inside the liver. The average baby is born with about 70 toxins at the time of birth. We are all experiencing a toxic burden. Where do these toxins come from? Well, they come from the air we breathe. They come from the chemicals that are in our processed food or on our food. Think of the herbicides and the pesticides that the crops are sprayed with. This gets into our body through our food system. It's also on any product that you put on your skin or hair, your fabric softeners. All of these things have toxic chemicals in them. And it seems like any of them by themselves aren't really a huge problem, but the cumulative effect of all of them together can create a problem for our bodies. And what happens in the liver is the toxin comes in and it goes through a series of biochemical pathways. We call this phase 1 metabolism, and an intermediate metabolite is formed, and then it goes through a series of further reactions, and then an excretory derivative is formed, and that can be excreted then through your urine, stool, or through the bile. Well, what happens is the liver can be overloaded with time. It seems like when we're young, it's not a problem, but as we get older, the liver isn't doing a good enough job at processing these things through. There's a lot that has to be perfect and going right to make this happen efficiently. Our bodies are amazing, and our body has two ways of metabolizing the food that we eat. There's an optimal way and there's a suboptimal way. And when the toxins have been too great, the optimal way is no longer a viable way, and our body shifts to the suboptimal metabolism. And that is why the weight gain happens. You're probably thinking, I had my blood work done and my liver was fine. So was mine. We all have liver toxicity. It's a matter of how much. And here's one way you can address it. You can avoid the dirty dozen. The dirty dozen are foods that are classically contaminated with herbicides and pesticides. And these are good foods to eat. I'm not saying don't eat them, but these are foods that are worth spending the extra money and buying organic. The Clean 15, on the other hand, these are safe foods to eat. They are typically not contaminated with herbicides and pesticides, and so save your money and just buy what you want with the Clean 15. So my third tip is to limit the toxin exposure, and you can do this by avoiding the dirty dozen or buying those foods in organic form. And this will help eliminate the burden that your liver has so that your metabolism can be restored. And by doing this, you really have the power to change your life. So simplify and give your liver a break. I think about this with my skincare products too. You know, the more ingredients there are in something, the more your liver has to do to process those things through. Like Bath & Body Works lotion, love that stuff. It smells so good, but I usually pick something simpler now because I don't want my body to have to break all of that down. So, to review, the tips are self-care. Pay yourself first in the morning. Give yourself some time to tell your body that you're not in danger. You know, I think about when I'm on an airplane and they say if the cabin pressure changes, put your own oxygen mask on before you help your small children. It's the same way in life, right? If we take care of ourselves, we're so much better equipped to care for the people that we love so much. My second tip is to decrease the inflammation in your body by limiting your bread and sugar. And my third tip is to avoid the dirty dozen and to simplify your products so that your liver has a break and that your metabolism precursors won't be damaged like they so frequently are in today's world. So let me give you an update on Lily. In 1 year's time, she's fixed her adrenals, healed her gut, and addressed her liver toxicity. She has energy throughout the day. She goes to bed around 10 because she knows sleep is so important, but oftentimes she isn't even tired at that point. But she knows that it is very important to get a good night's sleep, so she closes her eyes and she sleeps like a baby. She wakes up in the morning feeling very refreshed from a good night's sleep, and she's not sore and achy like she used to be. Her abdominal bloating is gone and her metabolism is fixed. She's back to feeling comfortable in her own skin and her bathing suit. The brain fog that she had developed is gone, and her happiness is restored. She feels present and engaged with her family. Her hormones are balanced, so she's no longer irritable, and her libido is back too. And she has learned to listen to her body so that she can continue to thrive as an athlete, as a wife, as a mom, and a doctor for many, many years to come. She has a passion for helping people one by one achieve the same results that she did. You might be thinking, that sounds great, but I couldn't do it. I didn't think I could either. But I had a choice, and you do too. You can choose to stay the same or do something. Stay the same or do something. I'm so glad I chose to do something. Do you think this would work for you? If you followed what I showed you in secret number 1 and fixed your adrenals and increased your energy, then did what I showed you in secret number 2 and identified and fixed the source of your inflammation to decrease your pain and achiness, and then used secret number 3 and detoxified your body and fixed your liver, do you think you could continue to live your best life starting right now? I'm not sure if you're feeling excited at this point or overwhelmed. I've thrown a lot of information at you, I know. But I'll tell you, I love working with people who this really spoke to. I love working with people who want to be healthy and are willing to put some work in, but just need a guide to help them. I invite you to change your life. My tips are proven to help. But if you need a guide, I am here for you and I will help you. I invite you to a breakthrough session with me. You have the power to change your life. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate your attention and I value your time.